you think it's more than one? Do you think it's more than 10? Do you think it's more than 10 million? Well, you are right. It is over 250 million books. And we're going to be speaking to the man himself very, very shortly about his brand new book called The Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Deep End. I've read it. I've finished it. It is fantastic. And as ever, it guarantees you one thing: 50% cartoons, 50% words, and 100% awesome. It's also hilarious. What can I tell you about it? Well, I would say it's about Greg Heffley and his family. They go on an adventure, and then we're going to have to hear from the man, the myth himself very shortly to find out what the book is all about. You, however, can ask questions yourself. If you'd like to do that, just jump on the chat function. I can see some of you are doing that already, and get your questions in, and we'll read out as many as we can later on. But without further ado, you can't introduce Jeff Kinney without giving him a proper introduction, like you are a boxing MC. So, introducing, he hails from Maryland in the United States of America. He is an author, a producer, a game designer, by the way, a cartoonist, and has sold over 250 million books. Hello and welcome, Jeff Kinney. Jeff, hello.
How are you doing, Radzi? Thanks so much. What a great introduction. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by it. I'm going to take these glasses off so that I can see you properly. First of all, Jeff, how's lockdown been for you?
Lockdown has been interesting. You know, it started off kind of like we really shut down. We weren't really doing anything except for going to the grocery store. And I have to say, I actually kind of liked it, because I felt like I was on a fast moving train and I had to get off the train. And I spent a lot of time with my kids, with my family. We played board games, we watched television, we watched Avatar: The Last Airbender. I wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for lockdown. So I liked it in the beginning. And I guess it's getting a little old now, but I think we're going back in, so we'll see how it goes.
And I'm coming to you from Wolverhampton. Many viewers will be watching this from the UK, but you're from the other side of the ocean right now.
That's right. I'm in Plainville, Massachusetts, and I know you don't believe that's a real place, but it really is. I'm in my bookstore, so you can see I'm in the Wimpy Kid studio. In fact, I'm going to spin around so you can see where I am. Very colorful kind of studio with a
Look at that.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Now, you mentioned the studio. We're obviously going to talk about your book in just a second, but can we talk about your studio, because it's the stuff of mystery. I remember seeing a tour of it actually on the Puffin YouTube page, and it is phenomenal.
Thank you very much. It's really cool. Actually, I'll show you around really quickly. You can see over here, I've got a telephone booth that looks like, does it look familiar to you?
That looks like a proper traditional British phone box.
That is correct. That's where I do most of my writing, and it always reminds me that a lot of my fans are in the UK, so that's a good thing. I have right here an Uncle Scrooge McDuck statue, which it was owned first by Michael Jackson, so that was pretty cool.
Wow, one of my heroes.
Crazy. I have some stuff from the movie sets over here, a giant cheese wall where sometimes fish swimming, things like that. And we have a UK transplant. This is Vanessa, who I work with, straight from London.
Hey, Vanessa.
Yeah. And there we go, the Queen right there. We have a Greg statue. I don't have to pay him at all. And then lots of other stuff. If you look right outside of the window here, you can see there's other stuff here, like these clouds that change colors. And that's a replica of a giant balloon. There's a loaded diaper van flying out of the wall down there. Airplanes, all sorts of stuff. So it's a cool place to work.
Thank you so much for that mini tour. Well, and I have to say, we are here to talk about your 15th book in this series. Can you believe it's 15 books? Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Deep End. What can you tell us about it?
Well, first of all, I can't believe that it's 15. For some reason, this one kind of hit me, because I realized the books are definitely now older than Greg Heffley. So that, you know, he's stuck in middle school forever. But the Deep End, it was interesting writing it, because I started writing it right at the beginning of lockdown. And I knew that this book was going to come out at a time when we were still going through this pandemic. So I thought, this is really weird, because in a way, I kind of have to acknowledge the pandemic, because literally everybody in the world is going through it. But I also knew that kids will be kind of sick of experiencing the pandemic. And there's a lot about the pandemic that's not that funny, of course. So the way that I handled it is that at the very beginning of the book, and I'm going to actually read you the first page, if that's okay.
Ah, yes, please. Thank you.
So you tell me, for the kids who haven't read this, yes, I have to throw on my reading glasses. All right, first page, it says, I love my family and all, but I don't need to spend 24 hours a day with them 7 days a week. And that's exactly the way it's been around here lately. It's not just me who's getting tired of this either. We're all going a little nuts. And if things don't change soon, I think we're going to go off the deep end. Mom says we've been cooped up for too long and we just need a vacation. But what we really need is a vacation from each other. I think everybody in the world, everybody who's a kid right now is living at home, knows that feeling. And so anybody that reads that first page is going to think that I'm writing about the pandemic, but I'm not. The family is cooped up in their grandmother's basement because at the end of the last book, their house was sort of partially demolished. And so they need a place to live, but they still are living in that kind of quarantine lifestyle where dads were working remotely and they're playing a lot of board games and they're bored and they don't have a TV, all these things that you could kind of feel claustrophobic about. That's how the Heffleys start. And then it gets into an escape fantasy, which I think we all need a little bit of an escape fantasy right now.
Thank you so much for reading that excerpt. When you think of an idea for a story, do you almost have it all mapped out in your head before you actually put pen to paper? Or how does that process work?
Oh gosh, I have a long answer to that and a short answer. I'll go with the medium. I'll tell you where it happens. Is they're right about 2 blocks from here, from this bookstore in the middle of Plainville, Massachusetts, is a cemetery. And that is where I did all of the joke writing for this book is at the cemetery. Because my kids were home, wow. They were doing remote learning, I couldn't work from home. We were doing home renovations, so we were all cooped up in a smaller space. And so I would go every day with my car, I'd bring a blanket, I'd bring some junk food, and I'd write my jokes in the cemetery. So that's the where. The how is kind of a long story, but the really short version of it is I think of a theme, and then I start taking things away. So if I was writing about an airplane, I might say, okay, would it be funny if you took away the pilot, if you took away Greg's seat, if you took away the wings? And I just go down the road and I try to think of all the funny things that could happen if you take things away.
As a principle, that's really, really useful for anyone to write a story about. So you take the idea and what would happen if you take one piece of that jigsaw out and how would that look?
That's correct, yeah. So all of my jokes for the last, I'd say 4 books have come from subtraction. So it's kind of a weird thing. It's like an easy little trick, but we're using this all the time with COVID-19. When we took away the schools, you say, okay, now what do? And you do remote learning. We do a lot of that in the US. And we've had to take a lot of things away and to try to figure out how to adapt.
And to that point, when you take away some of our freedoms, so possibly we can't leave our homes, we find other ways to enjoy ourselves, entertain ourselves. And thank you so much for that. When we talk about Greg Heffley, by the way, what is it about him that's just endured so long? Why is he so popular?
I think sometimes if you look at Greg, he's really a really simple character. He's only got about 9 lines on his face, right? And you don't know what race he is. You don't really know much about him. I try to make it really ambiguous because I want kids to be able to project themselves onto him and onto the other Heffley characters. And I think that's worked generally speaking. I think that, most people who have kind of a middle class life or have parents and teachers and bullies and pets and best friends know the stories of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. So I think one of the reasons that the character has been enduring is because he's not too specific. He's sort of like a blank canvas.
So in 15 books, apart from Deep End, do you have a favorite?
Good question. I have favorites for different reasons. I put out a book a few months ago called Raleigh Jefferson's Awesome Friendly Adventure, which is Greg's best friend who writes a fantasy story. And I think that's actually my favorite Wimpy Kid book. Of course, it came out in the middle of a pandemic, so not as many kids have discovered it yet. But I think that one was really fun. I'll always like the very first Diary of a Wimpy Kid book, and I like The Long Haul because it was really a different kind of book.
And not many people write and illustrate, and you're doing both. Was that something that just came about by circumstance, or did you always want to do that, to do both?
That's a great question. I always wanted to be a cartoonist. So a cartoonist, a newspaper cartoonist especially, they usually do both the writing and the drawing. And so I'm not a great illustrator. I've learned to get good and efficient at this one particular style, but I couldn't be on the comics page because my drawings aren't sophisticated enough.
So does that mean that then, I suppose, again, going back to our audience, the readers that obviously love your books, that it goes to show that you don't need to be amazing at every spectrum of something. Focusing in on one thing can work really well for you.
Yeah, I think so. And when we're talking about subtraction before, is that I'm a cartoonist, but I had to subtract talent and what I could do.
I think you're being very humble there. And how long does it take you to make a book?
To write a book, the first one took about 8 or 9 years. And ever since then, I can do a book in 6 months, a Wimpy Kid book, which is 6 months of really hard work. And then the last rally book, I did it in 2 months, which is kind of my world's record.
And with success, I suppose, does there come pressure? Because if I think about LeBron James in basketball, or Cristiano Ronaldo in soccer, or Usain Bolt in athletics, it's all well and good saying, I'm Usain Bolt, but at some point, I've got to run the race and everyone just thinks I'm going to win. So do you feel that same kind of pressure to think, is this the one that people won't like? Or do you always have that confidence?
That's a great question. Well, now you've put doubt in my head. I didn't that way before. No, the way that I feel is I'd put a different word on it. I'd say I feel responsibility, because now, even if I wrote a really bad Diary of a Wimpy Kid book, because there are so many Wimpy Kid readers, it would still reach millions of people around the world. So the way that I feel now is that I owe it to the fans, I owe it to the kids to do my very best in the time that I have. And so I really try to write the funniest book that I can.
And you've got children yourself. Are they really honest at critiquing your work?
They are, yeah. This is the first book. They're 15 and 17. And now my 17-year-old has taken about 3 weeks to get through most of the book, which is sort of sad. But this is the first one where I think maybe, they're leaving Wimpy Kid behind a little bit. But something that's been really cool for me is I've gotten to meet, I'm touring right now, and I've gotten to meet a lot of high schoolers. I think you would call them secondary schoolers. Yeah. And they come to my events, and it's really cool because these kids have stuck with me all these years, and it's a good feeling,
Do you miss talking about that? Do you miss not getting the same face-to-face that you'd possibly be used to when you can actually see the eyes really light up in people's faces?
Yeah, believe it or not, we are actually actively touring. I think I might be the only author in the US who's doing this right now.
Oh, wow.
And we're doing it in a really safe way, but a really fun way. So we have these events called drive-through pool parties. And so I'm sure it puts an image in your head. Families come through, they're in their cars, they've got masks, I've got a mask, and they go through this event where it feels like they're underwater. We've got lights and music and sound and all this stuff, and it feels like a pool party. And then at the end, when they come out of the deep end, I'm standing there on a diving board with the pool skimmer that's like 6 feet long, and I hand off the book. So we feel really safe, we feel really good, and I do get that eye contact. I get that moment where I can connect with the kid.
That's amazing to hear. I have to say, when I knew I was doing this event, I went into my bedroom and I thought, I wonder if I've got any of Jeff's books, because I don't recall buying them. And then I found these two. And I thought, do you ever get bored of seeing people perhaps on a train reading your book, or going on holiday and seeing a young person read?
Yeah. It's always really exciting. It's really cool. I've encountered a lot of kids. Like one time it was really funny. I was on a plane and I was doing a tour with the actor who played Greg Heffley in the movie. And so I'm sitting next to him on a plane. There's an empty seat, and a girl comes down the aisle who's probably about 13 years old, and she's actually carrying a Diary of a Wimpy Kid book, the movie diary, and reading it. And then she sits down next to us, and we're just like, hey. And I think she was like dead silent. I think she was kind of freaked out by it, but it was like, wouldn't that be odd if every time you read a book, the actors who were in the movie sat next to you on the plane, they appeared?
That is amazing. Now, so I asked you how long it takes you to write the books, and the answer is it varies. But you're also making cartoons, you're illustrating at the same time. Because this is Waterstones Live, and Waterstones Live don't do things by halves, we have to challenge the people that we're speaking to. Right. So would you be up for a little bit of a drawing challenge?
I would, yes, absolutely. You tell me what to do.
Okay, so I had an idea where instead of having 6 months to make a book, we'd make a drawing, and we could go for 10 hours, but I was thinking 10 seconds. Okay. You would have to draw. I mean, it'd be rude of us not to draw Greg.
Okay, yeah, sure. I'll draw Greg. All right,
okay.
I've got
so
this.
If you are watching at home, oh, he's got an easel and everything. Oh, this is amazing. Yeah. This is absolutely amazing. So if you're watching at home, please get your pens and paper out and give this a go yourself. We've only got 10 seconds in which to do it. And I know that it's going to be impossible for anyone to draw anything which looks like Greg at all in 10 seconds, even Jeff Kinney. I just know it. So I've got my stopwatch here.
All right.
And without further ado, in 3, 2, 1, off we go.
This is going to be rough. How many seconds do I have?
We've got 7 seconds left.
Okay.
5, 4,
okay,
3. Oh no, 2. It's a bit difficult to speak and do this. 1. Okay, I've created that, which I think is about as bad as it gets. Oh, hang on a second.
You know what? I had to go full stick figure below the waist. So, you only gave me 10 seconds. 20, I think I could have done it.
10 seconds. That is awesome. I'd love to know how you got on at home. Again, let us know in the comments if you do get. I'm blown away. Okay, so it's unfair in some ways because you have drawn Greg many times. But what if I went for something random like a block of cheese?
A block of cheese. All right, let me give it a try. Hold on 1 second.
So again, please try this if you are watching at home. We're going to have a countdown in 3, 2, 1. Away we go. Okay, I shouldn't have chosen a block of cheese because cheese is really hard. That was a pun and fact.
I'm going with a slice of cheese, so I cheated.
3. Oh no, 2, 1. That's all I've got.
That's actually really good. That's I'm going with the slice of cheese.
Nice.
I'll show you something cool. All right, so the cheese is kind of famous in the Wimpy Kid books, and I've got here. We had a musical that ran for a while, and look at what I've got. I've got the gross moldy cheese. Right. So that's an inspiration. You wouldn't want to touch it before you get the cheese touch.
Jeff, I feel like you could draw almost with your eyes closed. You're that good.
I think I almost could, but you wouldn't have any way of knowing that my eyes were closed because you're there and I'm here and, I'm going to be facing away. So how about if we go with a blindfold here? All right.
Oh, are you actually going to? No way.
Well, we need a point of comparison. So first with my eyes open, okay?
Okay.
Let's see. Okay. I'm going to do Manny with my eyes open. Okay. This is Greg's younger brother, Manny. And he's got a long mouth, a long nose. He's got 2 big teeth. All right. And there we go. And 3 hairs, just like Greg. All right. Can you see that pretty well?
Absolutely, we can, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I'm not going to be able to see much at all in a second here. So I'm putting on my blindfold. I have no idea where I got this. Hopefully an airplane. Let's see. Are you ready? Are you satisfied, Radzi, that I have got a blindfold on? In that case?
Absolutely. And Vanessa's there to adjudicate as well, and she wouldn't let you lie.
Okay, so you've got to tell me, Radzi, just the first dot, higher or lower? I just need the eye.
The eye, there.
Right here. Okay, great. Okay, so 1 eye and 2 eyes, right? So far, so good?
Yes.
Then the nose And I think I'll just switch to the teeth right away. All right. And then the mouth, and the neck, and then the ear. And then, is this perfect? And then the hair. Here we go. Hey, you could have given me a heads up that I wasn't doing well. You know, that's really, really sad. So, okay.
You see, Jeff, I'm actually not going to lie to you. I don't know how you managed to do that at all.
It's not very good. Can you see? Do I have it? I think it's 4. That one's good. This one's not so much.
But you did that with your eyes closed. It's in proportion. Everything's in its place, from the nose to the ears to the head. Okay, if I were to try that, okay, I will very quickly have a go at this.
Right, let's do it.
Okay, and this was my bad attempt. Okay, it wasn't nearly as detailed, but
that's actually better than your original drawing. So congratulations.
There's a compliment in there somewhere. There really is. And now I've asked you lots of questions, Jeff, and thank you very much. Would you mind if I could ask you some questions that the current viewers are asking?
I'd love it. Yeah. Let's hear it.
So Rio, who's 9, says, Jeff, can you recommend another children's book to me to read that isn't your own? By the way, I'm a fan of The Deep End and read it in 2 days flat.
Yeah, so that's really great. A book that isn't my own. I think she's trying to get me a recommended David Walliams book, and I don't think he needs to sell any more books. So I'm going to go with, I'll go with Andy Griffiths, who wrote a series called the Treehouse series, and I think they're popular in the UK. And he's a friend of mine, as is David. But those are really books. The really good books are really silly and wacky, and I really like them.
On that note, Jeff, when you finished a book, how do you know that it's done? Because if you were to draw something, and you can always add a little bit more, a bit of extra color, extra flair, how do you know that the story is now finally complete?
I'm usually racing like crazy to complete it, and this time was just crazy. The final flurry was, I think, about maybe 36 hours of straight drawing, and it was insane. So I knew I was done when I drew the last character, the last line. I couldn't go back and improve anything. I kind of had to go for it. In fact, I'll show you the very last drawing that I did. It was a 2-page spread. Actually, you know what? If I show it, I'm going to give too much away. So I'll show something that's not the very last page. But I was doing these drawings at the very end. Yeah, which were pretty cool. I was totally exhausted when I finished this book.
I bet you were proud at the same time.
Yeah.
Olivia said, what inspired you to begin writing the whole series?
What inspired me? I wanted to write a cartoonish kind of tale that sort of reflected my own life. So I had a normal upbringing, normal childhood, and I just tried to take all of the funny parts of my childhood and put them in one place in the book.
Derek just asks, how did you come up with all your characters?
Most of them are kind of funhouse mirror versions of my own family members, and Greg is a version of me that's a little bit twisted.
Where did the name Greg Heffley come from? That's a brilliant question.
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, my mother had 3 kids. My parents had 3 kids, and she almost named each one of us Greg, and she never did. There's a Patrick, a Scott, and a Jeff, and she never used that name Greg. So I figured I'd use it and bring that name to life.
I love that. Thank you for that one. Jack says, this is a good one. Out of all of your characters, who are you most like? You kind of alluded to it then.
Yep, definitely Greg. And I wish I was more like Rowley, because Rowley's a kid who likes being a kid. He's a pure kid. And I wish I had been a little bit more like Rowley when I was growing up.
Thank you. Oh, keeping in theme with the book, what's the best holiday you've ever gone on?
The best holiday I've ever gone on. All right, I'm going to say, we went to Utah last year in the US, which is in the it's in the West. And lots of beautiful red rocks and mesas and just gorgeous places to go. and it was really fun. That was our best family vacation. I'm glad we got to take it before the world shut down.
I've been to Utah and it is absolutely gorgeous, it has to be said. Stacy says, and this is a pertinent question, I think, well, a couple of people already know the answer. When will you release the latest book?
When will I release it? The new book is out now, The Deep End.
Yes.
And I'm working on a book that should come out in the spring, which is exciting. And then I'm going to release another Diary of a Wimpy Kid book in, I'd say, November of next year, just like always.
Nice. And is that dependent upon what happens in the world, or is it guaranteed regardless that we're going to get to see another one in 2021?
That's guaranteed. As long as my health is good, I'll put that out at that time.
Thank you. Question from Seth says, what do you do in lockdown to stop yourself from getting bored? In case people didn't hear at the very start when you said about what you and your family got up to in lockdown.
Yeah, that's a great question. What do I do to stop from being bored? My sons and I have been playing ping pong. So is that a thing over in the UK, ping pong?
Absolutely. Either table tennis or ping pong, we call it as well, yes.
Yeah. So we play a lot of that.
And are you competitive?
Yeah, we all are pretty competitive. But I don't care if I win or not. I just like for the game to be really close.
Nice. Brody Byrne from Dublin says he read Deep End in a few hours and says, did you get into as much trouble as Greg did when you were a kid, Jeff?
Great question. I got into more trouble than Greg as a kid. Yeah. Just a little bit more trouble than Greg, unfortunately.
Now, there are so many questions. Will and Flynn says, what or who inspired you to write anything in the first place?
I think I was inspired by my father. My father collected comics as a kid, and in fact, Scrooge McDuck was one of his favorite characters. So I really got into comics because of him. And then my mother had a really good work ethic. She showed me that you could have a job and then work on your passion at night. And so that's what I did. I kept a job all these years and I worked on my books at night.
Thank you. One from Alicia that's a little bit outside the box, it has to be said. What is your favorite British food?
My favorite British food. Let's see. That's a good question. Vanessa, can you remember something I really liked in the UK? Sticky toffee pudding. And and I also liked Byron burger very much. I know and shortbread.
Yeah. And well, my mum's from Scotland, so shortbread's one of the rules. And I mean, a Byron burger and sticky toffee pudding to finish. That sounds like a great day out to me.
Yeah.
Another great question, actually. How do you come up with the title names? By the way, Deep End is my favorite.
That's cool. For some reason, it takes me forever to come up with the titles of the books. And even the Deep End, it was like I really went for a long time without being able to come up with that one. Vanessa, do you remember what the other title was? We had lots of different. Sink or Swim was one that Vanessa actually came up with. We were really close to using that. And then the Deep End felt a little bit better because of the state of the world right now, is that it just felt like we're at the deep end right now. So I thought that was the one to use for this one.
Perfect shout. I have to say, these questions really are fab. Another fab question. It says, do you listen to music when you write? If so, what kind?
I don't listen to music when I write because it uses the same part of my brain that I need for writing. So if I listen to music with any lyrics in them whatsoever, I could not write. Now my son, he does his math homework, his English homework, everything while listening to music the whole entire time. And I can't believe he can do that. I cannot.
Thank you for that. If you weren't an author, what job would you like to have?
Well, for years I was a computer programmer, and I created a website called Pop Tropica, which is like a virtual world. And that was really fun. So I enjoyed that job, and I think that that's the kind of job I would like to have. Yeah.
Luke asks, are the books as a whole based on your real life at all?
Yeah, the books as a whole are based on my real life. Everything has gone through the fiction blender, right? So everything is a little bit different than what happened to me in my real life. But there are some things that happened in this book that really happened to me. including where Greg he falls out of the raft in a river and then loses his bathing suit.
And of all the, in fact, let me go before I ask one myself.
Sure.
When it comes to, were there ever any endings to books that you couldn't quite decide on?
You know, what's funny about this book is that I knew what I wanted to say, but I couldn't say it exactly right. And I got all the way up to the last day before I changed the last line, and my editor said, okay, you finally nailed it. You know, and it took a long time.
The question I was going to ask is, the title, The Diary of a Wimpy Kid, it does exactly what it says on the tin, as we say in the UK, where you hear it, you think, okay, I think I know what that's about. Did you agonize over the actual title of that at all?
I did, actually, because I thought, you know, what kind of kid would pick up a book that says Diary of a Wimpy Kid? Because I thought that kids might feel like, well, I'm not wimpy, I'm athletic, I'm popular, I'm cool. I don't want to read a book about somebody who calls himself a wimpy kid. But I think in a way, it's like we like to have a laugh at people who, you know, are you know, kind of make fun of themselves, I guess you could say. So I thought that for a long time, I kept the title as Greg Heffley's Journal. And then I changed it kind of at the last minute to Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and I'm glad I did.
When I speak to most authors, I'm lucky enough to interview them, whether it's for TV or otherwise. A lot of authors don't like the bit when they have to speak publicly. Yeah. Whereas every time I've seen anything from you, you seem to really embrace that and enjoy that. Has that always been the case, or has it been something that you've kind of learned as you've gone along?
That's a great question, Radzi. The truth is that I'm an introvert, and for an introvert, it's very hard to put yourself out there and to do that kind of a thing. So it's actually very difficult for me to speak publicly or to perform in any way. The reason I chose the profession that I chose is because I could work on something and then put it out there and say, here, I hope you like it. And I never, wanted to be a performer. I look at somebody like David Walliams, and I really admire him because he's a good writer and a good performer, and he likes to perform. So it's really, it's cool to see that somebody can do all of those things.
And we often focus in society on destinations and not journeys, in my opinion, where we think, that sports person just became really good overnight. We don't see the 15 years of training and when they weren't very good when they were really young children. With yourself, how long did it take you to go from I've picked up a pen to I've now actually got a book that people love and want to read?
Yeah, it took me 8 years to write that first Diary of a Wimpy Kid book. And I had to really get good at it. I had to get good at this very specific thing. And it really took me all those years. There's this book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, and it talks about the idea of a 10,000 hour rule, which is that to become an expert at anything, you need about 10,000 hours, which is like 10 years. And I'm sure, Radzi, that in your career as an interviewer, as a television persona, that you've had lots and lots of practice and experiences that have made you better and better. And that's why you can do something like this very easily. And so that's cool. I would just say to any kids out there watching, if you're going into lockdown again, you have an opportunity to start on your path to becoming an expert at something, whatever it is, as a musician, as a scientist, as a teacher, you can start your journey now.
And those words I couldn't attach myself to any more firmly. And it took me 3 years to get my break in TV. And all of those months and days were actually really difficult at times. And I didn't think it was ever going to happen. And I wasn't in control of the outcome. It had to be somebody had to see something in me. And so I put myself in as many places, as many times as I could. Eventually it happened. Over those 8 years, I wouldn't imagine every person who read your work to that point thought, Jeff, you are going to sell over 250 million books in 20 years' time. Did you doubt yourself? Did you have hard times?
Yeah, I really did, because when I tried to become a newspaper cartoonist, all that happened was I got rejected. So for about 3 years, I sent my work out there and I get form letters back that didn't encourage me at all. Nobody encouraged me. And so it was hard to keep writing. And so in the 8 years I worked on Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I thought for sure at the end of it, when I tried to get published, I would get rejected. In fact, I hadn't really researched, how you get published at all. I just worked on the work. And so I kind of had to have a little bit of faith in myself that this thing would work and that it might have an audience. And I got lucky.
And it really has worked out. 2 final questions.
Right.
One from Lizzie, simple question. Have you ever been to London?
I've been to London many times. In fact, I come to London every single year, and sometimes more than once in a year, and I love coming. And I love seeing my publisher and everybody who works there at Puffin. So I plan on being back hopefully next year.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you. And the final question is, did you write a diary when you were younger? I think perfect question to end on.
Yeah, I didn't write one when I was younger. I wish I did. But I started keeping one when I was in my 20s. And that was the thing that turned into Diary of a Wimpy Kid. So I wrote a journal about my everyday life. It looks exactly like Diary of a Wimpy Kid. It's text and then drawings. And so that's what inspired Greg Heffley's fictional novel. Great question.
You've been so generous with your time, Jeff. Thank you so much. For all the way from America, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I hope you at home have enjoyed it as much as I have. We can all give Jeff a round of applause. We'll only hear one person clapping, but there are many people around the country clapping. Thank you so much for your time. And a massive reminder to everyone, the book, The Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Deep End, is out now. Jeff, thank you very much for having us, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon, and stay safe.
Thanks so much, Radzi. You did a great job. Thanks to Waterstones. This was really awesome. Take care.
Bye-bye.